Are you ready to rumble? Welcome into the Vince Wilson Show, guys. I hope you guys are excited, or as excited as I am. This is going to be a very new stream, guys. We're back. I've been gone for about a week due to the fact that I have started a new job. So it's been kind of crazy, kind of chaotic all at the same time. But we're back. We're going to go over a little bit of what's going on with Donald Trump's first month. Just in a little bit that I've been gone, there's been a lot that's gone on. The State of the Union. We've had, what are some other things here? Hold on one second. All right. So, yeah, we had the Trump address, not the State of the Union, Trump address to Congress. We saw... Look, Lethe, you get off the internet, okay? You sit there and you spread these falsehoods about the Vince Wilson Show, okay? You spread the falsities. Maybe you should get off the internet. Now I'm playing. Welcome in, Lethe. But yes, Paul should fire you because you were just totally inept, just like our friend and our man, Donald Trump in the White House, okay? Our man in the White House, Donald Trump, is not doing too hot, okay? But with that being said... we've got quite a bit to cover. He's watching from jail. What's going on, Polar Fleece? What's going on, YOLO? Welcome in, guys. Hey, real quick, before we get started with some of the main topics and some talking about that, how about we go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, notification bell so more people can watch it. Please pray for me to be freed. That's great. Hey, watching from jail. I thought you said he's watching from jail. Crazy. What's up, Jackson? MAGA? That's so classical, so easy. You know, you could have done a whole lot better than that. But what we're going to go over is the State of the Union. We're going to watch a little bit of Trump's presser that he did today in the Oval Office. We're going to go over some other things to do with Maria Bartiromo. I was trying to find the actual full video. I can't find it anywhere, probably because it's like a Fox News exclusive. And then we're going to go over, if we get to it, we'll go over the Zelensky stuff. I didn't get to, again, I left at the worst possible time. I stopped streaming almost 2 weeks ago just because I was trying to get used to a new job and everything else and kind of have a break. I've been posting on TikTok, though, and stuff like that, so you definitely should check me out there. But let's go straight on into it. Let me make sure I have everything up here ready to go. We're going to first watch Trump's press briefing today. He did today. Back a bit too soon, though. You know, Lethe, look, okay? I left a little bit early, okay? But I'm back. I'm back on time, okay? All right, so let's go through this.
Very unusual number of people are surprised by it. I'm even a little surprised. On auto jobs, we created almost 9,000 new jobs.
No, I got you.
Production.
I got you, Lethe. So, this is not going to be like the typical standard layout that I normally do. So normally I kind of do an introduction and I prep these for YouTube, but we're going to just react to them live and go from it. Y'all are more welcome to criticize me, criticize my forehead, whatever. More welcome to do that. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
Field, and the reason for that is largely they think things are happening, so they're already geared up. In some cases, they had rooms in their plants, or they had empty plants that they were able to put into use quickly because they see because of the tariffs, they don't want to be dealing with other places. And
Promise you'll become a Trump supporter by the end of this address? I'm not going to become a Trump supporter. I'm so far from a Trump supporter, Lethe. It's ridiculous. All right.
They don't want to go back and forth and around and through the borders and across.
All right. Sorry about that. Let's get back into it.
Mexico border and Canada border and all of, they want to have the jobs in one location. And they've had space, and if they had space, they were able to create the jobs almost immediately. In some cases, they'll be building
It's official.
plants to take care of those jobs. So we created 9,000 new jobs already in the auto production, auto parts.
I'm doubtful on this auto production thing that he said he got. I could tell you some of the jobs reports. He's trying to like fluff these numbers. It's like 9,000 that he's alleged to have created. Let's be realistic. Most of these jobs were very likely created under the Joe Biden administration. We see this already when we're looking at Apple. Apple ended up announcing that they're going to be start building some plants in Texas. And during the State of the Union, Donald Trump mentioned possibly revoking the CHIPS Act. Keep in mind, the CHIPS Act is probably one of the larger reasons why Apple decided to move here. They have not explicitly said so, but it would behoove them to do so. And this goes back to, again, Trump. The problem is that Trump is absolutely taking credit where he shouldn't be taking credit. But there are places that he absolutely has a hand in, which is going to come off as if I'm trying to say Trump bad. But the reality is that as he becomes president, he was handed a very, very favorable economy. That's just reality. He was handed a very favorable economy. And now, through his tariff policy, it's absolutely upended it. What we've seen is Donald Trump managed to botch what could have been a very, very great recovery. But no, he decided to play this hokey pokey game. And an interesting thing to me about this is that a lot of people that I heard when I was talking with these Trump supporters, they're like, yeah, the tariffs are so great. The tariffs are what's going to lead to more jobs coming back to the United States. Remember, they were all in love with them. And now Donald Trump is not doing what they said they were going to do. They were all in favor of tariffs, but yet Donald Trump can't seem to stick to it. Isn't it interesting how that works? Trump is our president. You don't like it, move to China. I can move to many other places. I like living here, and I like trying to keep my country. I'm kind of was a conservative. I mean, I guess maybe I still am, but I have some I'm more of a liberal now, more like the right left me. So it's funny that you say Trump is your president. You don't like it, move to China. No, I'm someone who still holds a little bit of conservative values, meaning I like to conserve and not really progress to the right and far right at that. I like to not move far right, but that's just me. Favorable economy stretching, but I do agree tariffs are wrong. So it was a favorable economy. The inflation year over year was going down dramatically. Job numbers were unemployment numbers were coming down. We saw gas prices starting to come down. We saw a lot of economic positive indicators. We saw record highs, at least on the stock market. I understand the stock market is not an economic indicator, but it is still something to keep in mind. The stock market saw 32 record highs, I think it was, in 2024. So, yes, Democrats tend to do this. What tends to happen is Republicans get into office, they botch it, and then Democrats are left to clean it up. So, hilarious when stating his actions honestly is considered anti-Trump. Hilarious when stating his actions honestly is considered... yeah, I know, right? Trump should have had everything fixed by now. He's been in office for over 60 days. No, I'm not saying he should have had everything fixed by now, but you can let me put it this way. Someone hands you the keys to the car, right? You can drive it safely or you can drive it erratically. And what Trump has done is instead of going like this and keeping his hand at the wheel, he's decided to eat that McDonald's Big Mac and play on his phone and everything else. And all of a sudden, guess what? The car runs into a ditch. And that's exactly what's happening right now with Trump's economy. Tariffs are causing uncertainty in the market. And keep in mind, we can point to direct links like Doge, who has already laid off numerous employees, federal and contractors. And I've heard today that in the closed door meeting, there was serious tensions between Marco Rubio and Elon Musk. So what's happening right now is Elon Musk is really in charge. Donald Trump doesn't want to get rid of Elon Musk because two reasons. Elon Musk is a major donor to the Republican Party, first and foremost. Secondly, Elon Musk is a cult figure for MAGA. Donald Trump can't get rid of Elon until Elon is unpopular with the base. That's how it works. I won't even lie. Screw everything about politics. Both sides are dumb. No one can ever agree. If they simply started to compromise, then everywhere in the world would be better. Why didn't Trump's tariffs raise prices last time? Why are over 70% of those tariffs still in place? Glad you asked. So the glaring difference there, CR, is that Donald Trump's initial tariffs were just on steel, aluminum, and what is it? There was steel, aluminum, and one other one. They were targeted. And even then, they were relatively low, and what was found was that it did increase prices, but relatively low comparatively because of the fact that there were alternatives across the globe. Well, what's happening right now is we see Donald Trump wanting to levy tariffs against Canada and Mexico. He's potentially going to go after the EU. We have yet to see that really, but I'd imagine it will be coming. And then he's already gone after China. China has not been let up at all, by the way. Everybody's focused on Mexico and Canada, but nobody's focused on the fact that you have China still not backing down, and Trump is just piling tariffs on Chinese companies. So yes, I'm Canadian, but I would prefer to be American. Well, absolutely. Well, I'd prefer to be American any day of the week. I would argue Canadians have a lot more patriotism right now than most of the MAGA do. And when I'm saying Canadians have more patriotism, I mean patriotism to their country than MAGA has to their own country. Long live Gulf of Mexico. Absolutely, right? It's not the Gulf of America. I'm calling it the Gulf of Mexico, whether you like it or not. I'm American. I can't stop. Come on, popcorn. Come on, man. You got to be a better troll than that. So. Don't dead name the Gulf, bro. Popcorn, that's silly. Keep crying. Let's see. Biden stopped production on day one and sold the parts for pennies on the dollar. Are you talking about the wall, Melissa? Hey, I think he absolutely had every right to. By the way, Joe Biden ended up selling those pieces of the wall like a couple of years ago, and when MAGA found out, he just immediately dropped it because by that time he'd already sold enough. Trump isn't thinking about the poor. He is filling his pockets with the people's. Absolutely. What's up, Grace Maryland? Welcome in. All right, let's continue this. Going on.
Manufacturing. So we want the auto parts ideally, and I think from a simplicity standpoint too, to be built and made in the United States.
There's double audio coming through. I'm sorry about that, guys.
It all took place in a single month. 9,000 new auto jobs. You haven't heard that in a long time. After auto workers lost more than 27,000 auto jobs. Speed this up.
This dude talks too slow.
In the final year of Biden. These are also high-paying jobs. These are very prime jobs. The ISM Manufacturing Survey and the S&P Manufacturing Survey have also confirmed that our administration is presiding over a brand new domestic manufacturing boom after major collapse under Biden. It was a collapse. All he did is keep adding new government jobs, which are not the jobs you want.
Adding new government jobs as he's like removing all of those. Mind you guys, their government workers are still workers, and now they're no longer going to have a job, which means they're going to have to find another job, and very likely they're not going to go back to the public sector under Donald Trump. They're going to end up going down to the private sector. Good luck.
We're trying to shrink government and grow the private sector. That's what we've been doing. Under the final 2 years of Biden, 1 in every 4.
This tends to be the problem right now with the Donald Trump administration, by the way, guys, is that what tends to happen is he's putting the cart before the horse. What he's doing is he's actually going in, and what he's doing is putting the cart before the horse. He's not creating these jobs and then firing these people. He's firing these people and then trying to create these jobs. That's not going to work. And it's the same thing that happened with, my goodness, the deportations. He's deporting these people before he's actually fixed the immigration issue. So what's going to happen is they're going to go back to their home country only to then come back to the United States. There's not really going to be a fix to this. It's not fixing the problem. You're just creating more problems. And we've seen Kristi Noem out there playing dress up as an ICE agent. It's hilarious to me. Trump was selected, not elected. They selected the candidates and they count the votes. Your vote is meaningless. I don't like to have that mindset, Johnny. Honestly, I really don't, because I tend to understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't like the idea that your vote doesn't count. No, I think we saw in this election where every vote does count. There were several swing states that it was very, very narrow. And had Democrats turned out, they would have absolutely flipped the election. It would have been different. And keep in mind, if you look at how some of these swing states went, I believe it was Michigan and Ohio, maybe? Michigan and Ohio ended up having where they won the presidency at the state level, but they ended up the representatives or Congress people or the senators were Democrat. It was split. So it was very interesting to me how that kind of played out. So let's see here. Trying to see. I got a lot of chat going on here. I love how fool this guy Vince don't know anything about what they're talking about, but are so very opinionated. Buddy, once we get them out, it's very hard for them to come back in. Once you get them out, it's very hard to get them back in. That's rich to me. That's extremely rich to me. That you would sit there and say, once we get them out, it's very hard to bring them back in. They're going to come back in. By Donald Trump's own logic, they end up coming back in. They literally get bussed here, according to Donald Trump's own logic. So why would you deport these people only for them to come back? Because you don't have the wall built. You don't have the funding to get the wall built. You can put the military down there. But what is the military going to do? What's the military going to do? They have no powers to arrest these people. They have no powers. These military people do not have the powers. The National Guard, for the state National Guard, they're a little bit more loose. But guess what? Greg Abbott has already sent people down to the border. A lot of these states have already sent their National Guard down to the border. All you're doing, and this is why I think it's hilarious to me, one thing the Donald Trump administration is working on doing right now is they're doing everything they can to just show and not actually do. They're like sending down helicopters and they're sending down, big Humvees and stuff. It's not doing anything. It's all a photo op. So yeah, it's hilarious to me. Vince Wilson is busting them himself. I guarantee you they'll get back in. Vince Wilson will do anything there, Lethe. Trump is head of a military sting operation to save America. I wonder, is Trump intentionally destructive or is he just dumb? Listen, SSG, I think that when it comes down to Donald Trump, I think it's kind of a mix of both. I'll be very honest. The Donald Trump in the first administration does not actually know. The Trump in the first administration was at least a little bit more, I guess you could say, organized. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I can't tell if it's because he was younger and more green, or if it was because he had people around him that had common sense. And this new administration, he's hired a lot of people that just don't have the qualifications to be in those positions. Add to this, he clearly doesn't, like, when you listen to some of these things, like this one right here, you can literally see the piece of paper down here that he's reading. Okay. Or the time, remember guys, all throughout the election when they're like, Donald Trump isn't reading off a teleprompter. He don't need a teleprompter. He can do it himself. And now look at him. He's constantly reading off a teleprompter. He did it all throughout the address to Congress. He did it right here. He's done it all over the place. So spare me anymore. And I hope that the next Democrat candidate actually ends up using a teleprompter because it'd be quite hysterical. So again, it's just very rich to me how they've changed their tune on that. But I don't think that the Donald Trump in this administration really quite knows what's going on. Right? This man goes on the weekend. I guarantee you, we're on week number 5 or 6. I guarantee you he's going to be at the golf course again this week. Again, remember, everybody made fun of Joe Biden for going to the golf course, but Donald Trump ends up going to the golf course. Whoa, we don't know. He's working, guys. He's working on the golf course. Okay, so Joe Biden can't work on a beach? And then it's funny to me when they go, oh, Donald Trump won by a landslide. Oh, really? 1.5% margin. Boy, I wonder how Joe Biden did. Joe Biden must have really won. If that was a landslide, man, he did an earthquake. So, anyways, let's get through this.
Jobs created in America was a government.
They just want to add more taxes on us to enslave us. Trump has words, huge words. Many of them actually, he do not need a teleprompter. And he does need a teleprompter. It's when he goes off, and keep in mind, it's when he goes off script that he gets himself in trouble, just like he did at the state in this address to Congress. He ended up getting himself in trouble because what the administration has been doing is they've been saying that Elon Musk is not the head of Doge. They said it was like this other person who was the head of like U.S. Digital Services or something, and has been. Well, she was in Mexico. Well, court filings are going to come out. There's already new filings saying, look, here's Donald Trump himself saying Elon is the head of Doge. This is the problem when he goes off script. He gets himself into trouble. Guys, 6 months from now, you're going to look like fools. See, this is the funny thing about it. They go, God, look, Vince, he's only been in office 1 month. Guess what? In 6 months, when I say, hey, look, the economy's still bad, he's only been in office for 6 months. And then guess what? It's going to be a year. And they're going to say, look, Vince, he's only been in office for 1 year. Okay, give him some time. Next thing you know, 2 years comes around. Guys, look, it's only been 2 years. He needs more time. It's hysterical to me. Absolutely hysterical. It always moves. Why? Because they are a cult. MAGA is a cult. Say it with me. MAGA is a cult. Okay? That's why.
That's a tremendous percentage. But under the first full month of President Trump.
Oh, Amphibious, it's hilarious to me. By the way, I stream on YouTube Shorts. Always does really well, but yes, Amphibious, they're going nuts right now. YouTube is coping so hard. It's hilarious.
Which we haven't even gotten started yet. An incredible 93% of all job gains were in the private sector. So that statistic just came out. Big gains for native-born Americans for the first time in 50.
Wes, I've done stuck my hand into the beehive and just shook my hand around, and it just completely is going nuts right now. And that's fine. MAGA's upset. They don't like facts. Remember, the party of facts don't care about your feelings. You guys surely are upset about facts. I thought facts don't care about your feelings. Yes, BC, MAGA is a cult.
15 months, the job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15.
After a month like this, it's concerning what could happen in 3 months or a year. I mean, you're right, SSG. That's kind of the concern I have right now is when you look at what's going on right now with our economy, I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 6 months. And I want people to understand it was the stuff I forgot the Hawley Act, whatever, from the 20s. We are living through what feels like the 20s right now. Okay. He's going to throw in a crap ton of tariffs. Unemployment's going to skyrocket. We're going to be an isolationist country. We're going to try to just pull in, to ourselves. We're not going to bring in other trade. We're not going to have trade partners. We're just going to rely on ourselves. And it's going to be the Great Depression. I'm going to go full tilt. I'm going to be a little bit crazy with it. I'm going to say we're heading towards a depression, worse than a recession. If this keeps up, this trend keeps up. Because here's the problem, guys. He's going back and forth between these tariffs. What do you think is going to happen? Canada's going to work, and they're already doing this, working to have trade partners outside of the United States. Okay? We'll see if I'm wrong. Snip it, clip it, ship it. I'm fine with it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But what it certainly looks like right now is we are heading towards a depression. That's what it looks like to me. It's absolutely terrifying. Because when we've sat here and we've had constant pushing and flip-flopping on whether or not we're going to do tariffs, it creates uncertainty in the market. What does the market not like? Uncertainty.
Months, employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where
History and Power said, more whining. I keep hearing depression, and fresh. It's all bull. It's all fear-mongering. No, it's based in reality. Right now, stock markets are absolutely tanking. What Donald Trump here is ignoring is the fact that we have seen unemployment continue to skyrocket. I believe we are going to see inflation. We haven't seen it come out quite yet for, I believe, February. I don't know if it's come out yet or not, but I believe it's going to go up. I think every indicator is showing that it's going to go up. That's just the nature of how these tariffs work. And Donald Trump is already trying to implement these tariffs on at least China and has not pulled back from them on China, by the way. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty disastrous. And keep in mind, you guys are like, oh, well, guess what? That's going to mean more manufacturing jobs in the United States. Except right now, the only manufacturing jobs we're getting in the United States are going to take several months before we actually see any substantial job benefits. Once again, Donald Trump putting the cart before the horse. This is the problem. Every single step that they take, they are putting the cart before the horse, right? Instead of trying to create jobs, they're putting in tariffs, which is going to naturally increase the inflation rate. Look at eggs. Now, you can say that's because of the bird flu or whatever. Perfectly fine. Either way, address it. Fix it. That's what you ran on. But instead, Donald Trump is so focused on DEI. I've heard more about DEI over the past month than I have heard over the past 8 years. And guess what? I'm not hearing it from the left. I'm hearing it from Donald Trump and the Republicans. They're so terrified of DEI that they're canceling programs that have the word diversity or equity or inclusion. We saw recently where the DOJ, rumors have swirled that the DOJ is going to remove certain things from their websites, including, guess what? The Enola Gay. That was a rumor that's spreading, and they're trying to rebut it and say, no, we weren't going to do that. They were going to remove a picture of war heroes and remove the Enola Gay because it has the word gay in it. Because it's a problem. No, it's not a problem.
Foreign workers were taking up all the jobs, or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000.
Listen, Lethe, I can't answer that. You got to go back in time to answer that, okay?
First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak, and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up, and so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months. And they put it into effect pretty quickly. They have confidence that what I'm saying is going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask a highly respected gentleman, Kevin Hassett. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been right about a lot. We had the greatest economy in history.
Because nothing is more devastating. Y'all have a good one. This guy's a lost cause. He'll never think objectively. Luckily, he doesn't matter to USA success. Bye, folks. All right, have a good one, Danny. Thank you for coming in. Hey, Danny, by the way, I have no problem with objective facts. In fact, I voted for Donald Trump in 16 and in 20, and I regret that vote, by the way. And I voted for Romney in 14 or 13. 12? Was it 12? It was 12. Either way, voted for Romney in 12, ended up voting for Ted Cruz in 18. So I was a lifelong conservative. Only recently this year did I vote a Democrat ticket. I voted for Colin Allred, and I voted for Kamala Harris. Absolutely. And it was the best choice I could have ever done. I regret the fact that I ended up voting for Trump. I think Trump has absolutely gone off the crazy end. Okay. Everyone cried about how Joe Biden is 80 years old. Guys, did y'all know that Trump is only 4 years younger than Joe Biden? Okay. When we talk about old people, and it's hilarious to me. We'll get to this. But it's funny when Donald Trump's like, the unelected bureaucrats and George Soros. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is like visibly out there. He's an unelected bureaucrat. You voted Romney over Paul. Look, not my greatest moment. I was, fresh able to vote, and I decided to vote. And that was the way I voted. But yeah, I voted Romney. It was Romney. I thought it was Romney versus Obama. I'm pretty certain. Biden has dementia. Trump hasn't released any of his mental. Trump was supposed to release his his cognitive tests or whatever they were. He never released them, by the way. And when they attempted to release, those files from particular person, that had an island. Yeah, guess what? Donald Trump ended up saying, oh, sorry, guys, releasing files that were already released several years ago. And they said they're going to release more, but they're going to be heavily censored. Transparency. So great, right? We love transparency.
In the first term, and Kevin was a big part of it. So, Kevin, could you maybe give a little description, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. I think that the three things that you emphasized.
Oh, no. He brought out the charts. He's got the charts. What does that even say? Do we have 1080? Let's see. I can barely read it. It says manufacturing jobs. What kind of chart is this?
During the campaign is that you wanted to create domestic, high-paying manufacturing jobs, that you wanted to end wasteful government
What in the world is this?
spending and reduce the unproductive.
Okay, so it says last 12 months of President Biden, first month of President Trump. Is this like an upside down? Oh, it's an upside. So they're saying that Biden lost 111,000 jobs and Trump had 10,000. I don't believe this at all. I don't know where this fact is coming from. Let me see if I can find it. This is hilarious to me. Let's see. All right, let's check it out. Let's see if we can find out where this came from. Because I'm very curious. Biden, 111,000 jobs. Curious where he got this from. Let's see. Oops. Oh, here we go. This is from the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is claiming this. 111,000. It's the only place I see that. Saying that the White House said that a report was a swift turnaround for the Biden administration, saying 111,000 manufacturing jobs were lost in the Biden's final year. What report is this? Oh, the report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So what they're saying is it's found that 151,000 jobs were added to the economy in February, including 10,000 new manufacturing jobs. Federal government jobs declined by 10,000. Let's see what this report is. This report is from March of 2024 or 25? 25. Let's see. Let me put this on here so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. You can't really see it. It's kind of off to the side. Do we have 111,000 in here? 111,000 on here. There's some kind of math that they're doing or something to come up with that number. That's what it looks like.
Government workers, and in fact unleash them into the private economy where they could be more productive and to create jobs for Americans. A lot of people said that if you deported illegals, the employment would go down because no Americans would take those jobs. And if you look, 280,000 American-born folks were hired. Manufacturing jobs are going up, and this is just out of the expectation of your future policies, really, sir. It's in April when your Reciprocal Trade Act is expected to happen. The tax cuts haven't passed yet, and so people are clearly.
I also believe, and I could be wrong in this, I believe manufacturing jobs are seasonal. I could be wrong in that, but I believe manufacturing jobs are seasonal, where they, December kind of has a lull when it comes to hiring, and then they pick back up. This could be completely unrelated to anything that Donald Trump has. This is just coincidence. And this is the funny thing about it too, by the way, is when I see a lot of MAGA sit there and go, well, Donald Trump has only been in office for 1 month. Just give the guy a break. But yet they're touting these numbers right here. So let me get this right. Is it that Donald Trump is doing enough, or is he not doing enough? It's one or the other. You can't sit here and say he's only been in office 1 month, give him a break, yet tout at the same time all the accomplishments that he's had in 1 month. It doesn't make sense to me.
Expecting the golden age. And if you want to forecast the future numbers, everybody, just keep in mind that.
To Jim's point, did you see 75% plus liked the speech? Yes. By the way, that 75% was because the poll had 51% of Republicans. It was heavily. And guess what? The Democrats were only 20%. 20% of that poll. Of course. And then they had independents in there. It was like 20%. The poll was extremely skewed. So you guys want to now believe in the polls. Go on, believe in those polls. But guess what? Those polls are wrong. Convenient. Isn't that how it works? And yes, guess what? Polls are not the end-all be-all, which is why I rely on aggregate polling. Speaking of aggregate polling, let's go ahead and see where Donald Trump lies in terms of his approval and disapproval. I believe the honeymoon is now over. But let's give it a look. Why don't we? Let's see. Let's go to 538. I like that poll. I like that aggregate. 538. Trump approval. I believe he's under now at this point. Let's see. Oops, that's not it. Is it? What in the world? Is 538 down? Oh, it's interactives. What? Favorability? What is going on with this polling? Okay, so is 538 down? Okay, fine. Let's pull up Real Clear Politics. We can do Real Clear Politics too. I'm fine with that. Because right now I'm not able to get into 538, which is crazy to me. But okay. Oh, look at that. All right. So still up by about the margin that he had whenever he was he won. Here, I'll pull it up here. He's only, look at this. He started off here. Really great, right? 51%. I'm waiting for that to cross. And this is from Real Clear Politics. Only a 1.4% spread. 1.4% spread. Look at that little bar graph. It's going down, boys. It's going down. Cue the music.
President Trump has already gotten us 1.7 trillion in commitments of new factories, and those haven't even happened yet. Those aren't even in the numbers. And so I expect this.
He won for a reason. Yeah, the reason was so that because when you're a cult, you tend to vote for people that cult of personality.
This is going to be a glimpse of a golden age to come, sir.
Thank you very much.
A glimpse of the golden age to come. The golden age. Trump has an obsession with gold. Literally, look at the background. Gold. He talked about the gold card, the golden age. I don't get this obsession with gold with Trump. It's such a weird and odd thing to me.
One other thing, in Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy
I'm saying gold. Look at the gold in the background. He's got the gold up there, the gold frames.
products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of. But under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with.
America did not win, Christine. Americans did not win. I'll tell you that.
The Canadian representatives, 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff, give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out, on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada.
Trump derangement syndrome. The only people who have Trump derangement syndrome, let's be very clear, are MAGA. MAGA are the ones who have Trump derangement syndrome.
But our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees.
Do y'all think he meant like firewalls, like as in technology? Or do you think... Hold on. Did I hear that? Or maybe I'm just tripping. What does he mean?
Can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold. But we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada
I hope he's meaning like, I don't know if he's saying firewalls or if he means like to protect the forest. I hope he means to protect the forest, but something tells me that's not exactly what it is.
For years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that. 250% for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that.
I do think so. I think there is a tariff from Canada or us onto Canada, whichever one. That's like 250% for dairy. But let's be very clear. We most of the stuff we get here in the United States is local dairy. I don't believe that most of the dairy we get is from Canada. So I know that we send out some dairy, I guess, to Canada. I don't know. Again, 250%. I'm not terribly worried about
tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers. So that's not going to happen anymore.
I know, Chris. I know that's what he's trying to say, possibly, but it's funny to me the way he frames it, right?
They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. Never has been fair. And they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody. That stops now. I had it stopped in my first term. And we're going to really stop it now because this has been very...
BTC3 goes, Bro, you don't know how the economy works, bro. Great argument. Thank you. I appreciate your very insightful look into this. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Fair. Our country from an economic...
Thank you, the end. They're called fire breaks, not firewalls. Which, again, I'm sorry. I don't think that Donald Trump... He's probably mixing two words. He does that. He tends to do that a lot where he mixes two words. So I'll give him grace there. I don't think he maybe meant firewalls and computers. And to be fair, I think he doesn't even know what a firewall is on a computer. To be fair, I don't think he even knows that.
Standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a trade standpoint has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico, and then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even...
So India's next. He hasn't said so, but India's next is what he's trying to say here.
Can sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. We do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU is...
EU. So EU's come. Pay attention to who he's referring to here, because guess what? Those tariffs are coming. Those tariffs are absolutely coming, and you best believe it's going to cause, guess what? Inflation. This is right here why I say we are heading towards a depression. That is why I say that, because you look at what's going on with things like this. All it does is lead to constraint. And guess what happens? When those people end up levying tariffs against us, it's going to just cause a halt. This is what happened with some of the auto manufacturers. They said, hey, until y'all get this sorted out, we're shutting down operations because this just isn't going to work for us. We can't export because it's going to cost us a ton of money to export these. And we can't import any of our supply. We can't import the raw materials that we need. So guess what? Zip! Shut down for operations, because that's the most efficient thing they can do.
Formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong, and if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine, but they can't do like they used to do, because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA.
Canada has had 250% tariff on U.S. goods for a long time. The U.S. goods that you're talking about is dairy, and I believe that's the only product that I know of that has 250% tariffs, which, again, I think is hysterical. It's like one little product. And 25%, you're looking at this in a very binary way, Captain Nemo, is you're like, well, look, there's a 250% tariff, and we were only doing 25%. Yeah, our 25% is on all goods coming into the United States. When it's already, and the thing you got to think about this is that we're going from a baseline of, what is it, like 10%? I don't know what the current tariffs are on lumber, but we're going from that a lower baseline. 25% is an increase. So you're increasing it. What is the current right now tariff on lumber? Let's check that out real quick. I'm curious. What is our current? Well, the problem is I don't know if we're going to be able to find the history. Tariff on Canadian lumber. What's the current rate? So it looks like it was 10%. That's what I thought it was. I believe it was 10%, and he bumped it up to 25%, which is a 15% increase, which is significant. So, all right, let's get back to it.
We're not going to have that, and we're going to see him build it back. Now we've already had 5 major automobile companies. First time you've heard this in a long time, since my first term actually, where we were really rocking and rolling, and then Biden came in and he stopped everything. Like such a stupid thing to do, not even a believable thing. But we have many auto plants now coming in. We have big chip plants. We have the biggest chip company in the world, most powerful, probably.
Thank you, Joe Biden, for bringing in chip companies to the United States. Thanks in part to the CHIPS Act that Donald Trump wants to get rid of. Good job.
One of the most powerful companies in the world. When you say, Kevin, and he's coming in and they're building one of the largest chip plants in the world. That'll be...
No, so Alfonso saying, watch this dude crumble as soon as the economy gets better. No, I actually hope for my own life and my own family, I hope the economy stays great. I hope that we continue the momentum that was given to Donald Trump from Joe Biden. I hope we keep that going. I hope the economy does recover. I don't wish that the economy gets bad, because that affects me. It affects the food on my plate. And if Donald Trump manages somehow, some way to turn the ship around, great. That benefits me and my family. I don't want to be in a Great Depression. I don't want to be myself unemployed. I hope it gets better. This is the problem with cult thinking, is that you guys sit there and go, oh, this guy just doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like my daddy Trump. This is the problem with MAGA, is they don't understand that there is a serious divide here. It's bigger than that. When you have people on your own side that you're calling a rhino just for the simple fact that they do not like Donald Trump, there's a serious problem with this. There's a serious problem when you have Mike Pence, for example, being ousted from MAGA. Now, we're certainly like, hey, you want to come over our side? Great. Or I've heard recently, maybe not by some of you, I've heard people call George W. Bush a rhino. George W. Bush, a rhino. I don't want our economy to go down the drain. It affects me. But I'm looking at the tea leaves right now. And the way that it's going, if it keeps up, if he keeps playing this flip-flop game, we are absolutely heading to the very, very least a recession. At worst, a depression. And I tend to lean more on that side.
Done in Arizona, mostly in Arizona. And that'll give us a big percentage. That one plant will give us a big percentage of the chip market, something we have very little of. You know, we used to have Intel, and Intel was run by a man named Andy Grove. And Andy Grove was a tough, smart guy. I used to read about him when I was a young man, and he did an incredible job. He really dominated the chip business. And then he died, and I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business.
How we handle, Uncle Herb said, how do we handle the national debt if you're so concerned about the economy? Well, one, we don't increase the debt ceiling like Republicans did. Good job. Second, we also don't sit there and not elect a Republican president who has already contributed to the national debt over the next 10 years by, I believe it was, $8 trillion, $8 or $10 trillion over the next 10 years. That's what you should do, but it's too late for that. So now we just have to accept the fact that according to a committee for a responsible fiscal budget or whatever it was, we just have to accept the fact that on the high end, Donald Trump's policies may end up very well leading us to almost a $10 trillion increase in our deficit. Good job, MAGA. You voted for more deficit spending. Good job.
And now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us. And I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily. But so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips. The brake of a car, cars have chips all over the place. I was reading an article the other day where they talk about the brakes of a car are loaded up with chips. Who would think that a brake has a chip in it? But it's all about chips. So that was a big thing, and they'll be investing hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, it's because of Joe Biden.
And will be taken back.
That's because of Joe Biden that we're bringing chips back to the United States. Thank you, Joe Biden.
A big portion of that industry. We have others coming in too. But a lot of car manufacturers are coming in, and they're coming in fast. And one of the reasons you see these numbers, and again, Kevin said it, and I said it a little bit, but the fact that they know I won the election, so after I was president-elect, they assumed that I was going to do what I said, because I do what I say. And so these numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th, right? So, Kevin, thank you very much. Great job. Any questions?
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting. They're going to start asking questions. So let's see how he handles these questions.
The large-scale federal government layoffs will weaken the labor market. How concerned are you?
The large-scale fentanyl what?
The federal government layoffs will impact the labor market, will weaken the labor market.
Oh. No, I think the labor market's going to be fantastic, but it's going to have high-paying manufacturing jobs as opposed to government jobs. We had too many people in government. You can't just...
Yeah, so unemployment's about to go up because you just got rid of several federal workers. Federal workers, by the way, that might help you bring in more manufacturing jobs. Good job.
Do that. We had too many. This is for 40 years. You know, this isn't just now. This built up and got worse and worse, and they just hire more and more people. You look at Department of Education, it seems like so many buildings I ride by, it says Department of Education. They're all...
Puffin said the Honda plant he announced, I've been building since before he was in office. I'm Canadian, by the way. Yeah, no, exactly, Puffin. That's the big thing, too, is Donald Trump right now, yes, he's been in office for 1 month. And that's exactly the thing. He's been in office for 1 month because, guess what? All the stuff that he's touting, yes, that's from his previous administration. Point me to a policy that's leading to these manufacturing jobs coming in. Point me to where these 11,000 jobs that were created or whatever they were created because of Donald Trump's policies. Name the policy. Name it. You're going to say tariffs? Well, no. They have to actually be filled jobs. There has to be a job that's been filled. So you can't sit there and say, well, this is because the company in the future sees that there's going to be a growth in the economy. That doesn't bear out, right? You can't sit there and say, well, companies are investing in manufacturing jobs because manufacturing is coming back to the United States. That doesn't line up with anything we've seen. Manufacturing companies are holding down costs because they're terrified that they're going to have to end up spending more on their inventory. They're more for their supplies, more for all these other things. So you can't sit here and tell me that these jobs are being created because companies are trying to invest for the future, the great future, the golden age. That doesn't align. What I suspect is going to happen is that you're going to consistently have manufacturing jobs coming in. That's just how the nature of the beast works, right? You're going to have these jobs being filled. The question is were the expectations 20,000 and they exceeded those expectations, or were they, were the expectations 15,000? That tells you where it's supposed to be. Matter of fact, we can actually look at this, and I'll do this real quick because I'm very curious myself. What were the jobs, manufacturing jobs added in February? Let's see, February 2024 manufacturing jobs added. Let's see if I can find the number on that. Just out of curiosity, which I believe it had it on there, but I'm going to see anyways. I think it lays it out here. Let's go to CNN. It's the best one I can find. Oh, look. U.S. economy added 151,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate rose to 4.1%. So what he's doing right now is he's like, hey, guys, look, the glass is half full, okay? The glass is half full. I've got 151,000 jobs that I added. Yay. Hysterical. I can't see where it was from where it was at on 2024. But nonetheless, let's go back to it.
All over the place. And we don't even want it. We want the education to be given by the states. It'll be much better. It'll move us to the top of the list from the bottom of the list.
Name a day that Biden talked to anyone about bringing jobs to America. Biden was actually BTC, when Joe Biden, I believe it was the Nippon Steel agreement with, I believe it's Japan, ended up talking about bringing jobs to the United States. He continued Donald Trump's steel tariffs, which was a big contention, by the way. But there was discussions there. So,
and actually save us money, but it's too important to even talk about.
KI said, well, you give credit to Joe Biden for the chips. That's great. But what about oops. Oh, what the heck? I lost your comment. I don't know where it's at. But I'm assuming you're talking about the rising economy. Well, I'll tell you this. Joe Biden ended up, just like Donald Trump is inheriting, Joe Biden inherited the economy from Donald Trump. Keep in mind, Joe Biden, for example, with like even immigration, only up until about 2022 or 23 did the Remain in Mexico policy get overturned. So there's that. The other thing is we can look at the fact that Joe Biden did contribute somewhat to the inflation. Maybe not near as much as Donald Trump did. But Donald Trump had 2 stimulus packages that he passed in May and December of 2020. And then you had Joe Biden come into office around January 21 and sign the American, I believe it was the American Rescue Plan, and sign that bill into law. Okay, which sent out more stimulus checks. We already had the first stimulus check come out. I would say that one was fine. The second one was wholly unnecessary. And then Joe Biden just went and threw gasoline on the fire. Was not okay with that. And keep in mind, this is the funny thing about MAGA, is because MAGA operates within this little frame of red or blue. You're either red or you're blue. And to be clear, you're either MAGA or you are a Democrat or Rhino. Democrat or Rhino are in the same bucket according to MAGA. And it's that cult ideology that they can't wrap their head around. Guys, I did not vote for Joe Biden. But I also understand by looking at sheer facts that Joe Biden took an economy that was hyper inflamed. It was just money going everywhere and reined it in. You can see on several year-over-year charts where it reached a peak of 9%, and he brought that year-over-year down to, I believe it was 3% or 2 or 3% by the time he left office. Jobs were booming. Stock market was seeing record highs all year last year. So, yes, he contributed to it in some manner or another, but we also had the OPEC deal that absolutely caused issues up until about 2022, I believe is when it expired. And guess what? In 2022, we saw the peak at 9%, and it went down right after the OPEC deal was overturned.
It'll save us a lot of money, but we don't want that. We want education to be given. So you go to Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and all these places that are so well run, they're going to be...
And likewise, here's the thing. Joe Biden, like I just said, there are policies that he can create that make a problem worse. Joe Biden signed the American Rescue Plan. That made inflation worse. Doesn't mean he caused the inflation, right? But he threw gasoline on a fire. And the same way here, Donald Trump had a great economy. But tariffs have a direct causal relationship with rising prices. So you can't sit there and blame Joe Biden for inflation. Moving forward, this is on Donald Trump because he continues to go back and forth on these tariffs, which MAGA loved. MAGA loved tariffs. They sat there, they said, yes, tariffs, those are great. Yet Donald Trump is yet to have implemented these. He goes, hey guys, over the weekend, I'm going to throw 20% tariff on Canada. And MAGA goes, woo, yeah. All of a sudden, Canada goes, we're going to throw 25% back on you. And Trump goes, whoop, no more tariffs. And then MAGA goes, yeah, that's the victory we were talking about. It's like Trump caved to Canada.
Producing education that will be the equivalent of, like Denmark is one, Norway, Sweden.
Absolutely, MAGA. Educating
Actually,
MAGA on critical
China
thinking is an impossible
one of the
mission.
better in terms of education, and so we can't blame size anymore. You know, China has 1.4 billion people, but they're very high on the list. The one thing we're doing well on, we're number one on the list, is cost per pupil. We spend more money than any other country in the world by far. So I jokingly say the one thing we do well on is the cost. We spend more money, and yet we're toward the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you, the joint address, millions of Americans watched your joint address earlier this week where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks.
Not answering the question about how long we're going to have to deal with these rising prices.
And these are...
Even though he said he was going to lower them on day one and failed to do so.
Fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies, and I gave them a little bit of a 1 month reprieve because it was unfair, although I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and they're taking advantage of it a little bit. But
yeah, that's called bringing as much inventory here to the United States ahead of these tariffs. What is that doing? That's companies trying to make sure they don't have to pay tariffs. They're taking advantage of saying, hey, look, Trump is going back and forth on these tariffs. We have no idea what's going to go on. So what are these companies doing? Send these cars. Send them down there. Send them. Go, 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 go. Because we don't know if he's going to do it. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. These companies don't like instability.
They called me, they asked me, they said, could they have a little bit of help? And I decided.
John said, you've got to stop watching CNN and believing the lies and then spouting it off. Spouting it off to the others. Stop the hate and anger, calling people MAGA as a form of dividing Americans and is the new form of race. Spare me, John. Spare me. I am so tired of watching MAGA clutch their pearls anytime someone dare challenges MAGA. Oh, you've been so offensive. And yet then they're going to go right back out there and start calling liberals all sorts of names. We saw Donald Trump throughout the entire election cycle. I saw him just the other day where he was crying about Rachel Maddow and her comments about the address that he made to Congress. Okay? I saw that. And the funny thing about that to me is he said far worse. He's actually done the whole like reporter that was disabled thing. He did that little mimicking thing. Or how about Fox News? When Fox News mimicked Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or John Fetterman. It's always a MAGA double standard. It's just a MAGA double standard. That's all it is. And IPA, you're wondering, who is Vince Wilson? Vince Wilson is or was the Doghouse Show. I changed my name so that it was a little bit more, I guess you could call it corporate friendly, right? One of the things is as we grow, I didn't really want to do the Doghouse Show. It just kind of rang really weird, right? So we rebranded. We're now the Vince Wilson Show. That's all it is. It's a rebrand. But welcome in, IPA. Haven't seen you in a minute, buddy.
You know, they're American companies, USMCA, and I let them have that. But this really kicks in the reciprocals, you know, kicks in on, let's see, I guess the second. And I wanted...
Absolutely, terversitude. MAGA makes no argument, has no reality-based line of reasoning. It's all attacks. That's all it is.
To be the first so badly, just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day, so I made it the second. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other parts of the world. But
it won't bring jobs back to America if they impose tariffs back on us. It won't.
The other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's been, it's hard to believe. 90,000, think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments, and you know, you can't just...
So what that means is for the next couple of years, we have to deal with the fact that Donald Trump is going to go up and down, 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 and up and down. He's not going to be consistent. This is going to cause turmoil in the markets. We've already seen that just to the fact that he mentioned all this. Stock markets have steadily declined. Dare you to say something good about him? Something good about Donald Trump was that he gave the stimulus packages, a stimulus package in 2020, the initial one. I guess you could say that. I would say that's about it. There's not a whole lot that's great about Donald Trump in terms of the policies that he's passed. I can't think of one really off the top of my head. You want to argue steel tariffs, that's fine. I don't know if it really led to manufacturing increases, but if you want to throw that in there, sure.
I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, no, I'm not going to give you anything.
Yeah, you can say that, Lethe. Yeah, you can say that. I'll also annoy Lethe by saying we got the C-19 TikTok language. I love it.
And then you wouldn't have had to say, well, they're getting a little extra. It's just a little bit of a 1 month reprieve.
What's good about the left for the American people? I would argue it's not even about left or right at this point. It's far more about the left and center right, or moderates, left and moderates, versus MAGA. There's a new party. The Republican Party no longer exists. I'm sorry. I'm calling it like I see it. The Republican Party does not exist. It is now the MAGA Party. That is what we have to deal with. That is what we have to understand. The MAGA Party is here to stay. When Donald Trump is no longer able to run for president, guess what? Don Jr. is going to step in, or J.D. Vance is going to step in. The MAGA ideology is here to stay, and I think that is absolutely atrocious when it comes to this particular the country. I think we've moved further right due to this, and people have just cheered it. This is not okay.
They're very happy about what's happening. They won't have to go across borders, and you see the zigzag.
Exactly, James. MAGA is Rhino. MAGA is the Republican name only.
But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it. But I think very little. On occasion.
Sometimes you have to go around the wall. Kind of like the wall you built at the border. Like the wall you built at the border. Is that what we're talking about? Is that what we're talking about?
If we can do something, we want to help companies. We want to help companies create jobs.
What's wrong about making America great again? Because I think it's a really cruddy, like, vacuous statement. I think it's a really silly statement, too.
So I could have left that and you wouldn't have had a minor change. Instead, I was asked by the real majors, the big majors, if they could.
Oh, yeah, there's that, Landon. Landon, you're right. Donald Trump ended up holding up these things because he wanted to put his name on the checks. Really great, right?
Do this, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. I want you to produce a lot of jobs. And numerous of the people, actually all of the people I spoke to have already been, they're very much on the way to already doing it. That's why you have auto jobs increase. And the man, I don't know him, Sean Fain, I don't know him, and I did great, as you know, with the auto workers, with the Teamsters, with unions, I did fantastically well. Best numbers ever by a Republican. And I have a lot of respect for those people. But Sean Fain, who I don't know, but wasn't a supporter, although the auto workers were big supporters.
Trump didn't give any checks out. Trump just put his name on it for credit. Yeah, no, exactly, Renee. You're 100% correct.
I watched him last night, and he said Donald Trump is absolutely right on tariffs. He said what he's doing on tariffs is an incredible thing, and it's about time somebody had the guts to do it, because we're going to save auto manufacturing. And I said to people when I was campaigning, you're going to have so many auto jobs, you're not going to believe what's going to happen.
This is the problem with tariffs, guys. I'm going to tell you guys this. I'm going to give you some facts. You can tariff China and bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. But guess what? If you still have steel and aluminum tariffs in place in China, guess what? You're going to have to find some way to get those raw materials to the United States. Great. They no longer operate out of Canada. Cool. But guess what? You still have tariffs on a whole other country, and it's going to still cost more money to create that car. And keep in mind, by the way, that you're going to have a higher cost of labor. You're going to have a higher cost of materials. All of those things factor into the cost of that vehicle. This is a bad idea. This is why they say targeted tariffs are a great policy. Blanket tariffs are terrible. And furthermore, yes, you bring them in here, but guess what? Donald Trump is still applying tariffs for the products that they need to make these cars. Don't just think about this stuff in a very simple, one-dimensional way. Keep in mind, you have steel. What about all the chips in the cars? What about all the, cloth or leather or any of that nature's type stuff? What about that? What about the fabric in cars? Right? Think about all the materials it makes to make a vehicle. And all the stuff, the plastic or even whatever, right? All these raw materials have to come from somewhere, right? They're going to come from outside the United States. So that's the thing. And look, everybody in here, Trump is king, Trump is king. Oh, great. Yeah, I forgot that all of a sudden MAGA loves dictators, right?
Load up Michigan. I won the state of Michigan, as you know. And part of the reason I won it was I got a lot of auto workers that voted for me, Detroit, etc. But I think people are going to be very surprised. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
See, this is a really great thing about it. When I look at some of these comments that are coming through here, like, NC saying you're really out of touch with economics, yet they don't provide substance as to why I'm wrong. Just saying, no, you're wrong. What am I wrong about? Tell me. Give me a substantive argument. Stop just sitting there saying, you're wrong, you're wrong. Provide substance. MAGA is unable to provide substance. That's it. And I've countered this time and time and time again. MAGA cannot provide facts. They don't run off of facts anymore. Quite frankly, they never really ran off of it in the first time, but they certainly don't run at it now. And why? It's because of sunken cost fallacy. It's the idea that you've invested almost 8 years, going on 12 years of your life to this man, this ideologue. And now you're afraid to go against that moment because you've invested so much. You are attached at the hip to the MAGA ideology. And you're right, Dream, is that he's looking to shut down the CHIPS Act, which is providing an incentive for manufacturing companies to come back to the United States to provide chips here in the United States. It's a great idea. But Donald Trump is trying to get rid of it.
You mentioned in your remarks chips manufacturing, how a significant percentage is now in Taiwan. You also mentioned it in your address to Congress, and you called on Congress to overturn the CHIPS Act, which had bipartisan support.
Balkanik, you're exactly right. Now I understand why when Trump said he loves the uneducated people, because the uneducated people love the quips, love the little, short slogans, because they don't like complicated ideologies. They don't like complicated policy positions. They like little bite-sized information. This is where I think Bernie had a good idea. Bernie was probably the best thing for the left, and let me explain why. In terms of messaging, Bernie was very populist. He had a very specific, easy to digest message, right? Minimum wage, things like that. That's the kind of people we need on the left. The problem is you had Kamala Harris, who was arguably one of the most moderate Democrat candidates that we've had, and she could not get the messaging out. She could not do it efficiently enough, better than Donald Trump. Donald Trump messaging was just better than Kamala Harris's. Okay, I'm not saying it was right, to be clear. I don't think Donald Trump's message was right, but he was far more effective in getting that message out. Right? Kamala Harris could not beat the propaganda machine that was MAGA. She couldn't do it. So when I look towards 2028, in terms of who is going to be the best Democrat candidate, right now, Kamala Harris is polling really well, but it's a recency bias. So what I predict is we're going to see someone like a Gavin Newsom. He's kind of coming up in the ranks a little bit. Believe it or not, Pete Buttigieg was in the running for some of that. So we need a younger candidate. We need someone who's much more populist, someone who's easy, and the messaging has to be succinct and it has to be very pointed. There are a lot of Democrats out there. Harris said she repeated herself to be at her message into the... Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. Trump will come to the rescue and lift tariffs, and he will be regarded as a hero. Yeah, well, that's the thing, too, right now, Energizer. He's already consistently going and bringing tariffs in, and he's bringing tariffs out. And because of that, they're hailing him as a hero. And it's like, you guys ran on tariffs. You guys loved tariffs. And now that he's lifting them, y'all are happy about it? I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
In the last Congress. Why would you like to see this particular law overturned?
Because it's hundreds of billions of dollars and it's just a waste of money. Now, some people have already taken the money and used it. Actually, it's very hard to...
Gary, the thing is that don't modify your message. What you mean by that is that don't run on DEI when Kamala Harris never ran on DEI, to be very clear.
qualify because they go by race, they go by gender, they go by all sorts of things. Nobody's ever seen it.
So thought of the day, we'll get to your message about the, if your party's against the cancer survivor and you don't cheer him, you don't deserve to have any say in anything. We'll get to that. Oops.
Anything like it. You won't be able to find those people. So I don't even think anybody can qualify. They have so many different categories in order to qualify. You have to have so many of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain this, a certain, and I don't think they can qualify, but if they take the money, they better qualify because they'll be watching them. But it's a tremendous waste of money. I didn't give the greatest chip company in the world, one of the greatest companies, I didn't give them 10 cents. They came here because of tariffs, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And they also came here because they liked the results of the election.
No, so me, it's funny that your name's me. To be clear, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily defend them not cheering for the kid. I think there's a deeper message there, and there's a way to kind of parse through this. Okay, I'll get to that. We got to try to get through this press conference. That'll be the last thing I'll talk about after this presser. But I do want to talk about that because it is a very interesting twist. And what I think a lot of people in MAGA especially are not being very critical. And keep in mind, they forget that Marjorie Taylor Greene, we'll look at some of those videos as well, of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert protesting Joe Biden.
Because they know that I'm very pro-business and pro-jobs. I mean, I'm pro-business, not for business sake. I'm pro-business because of jobs, because business is producing the jobs. Okay?
Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
You know, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine. And Ukraine, I'm
By the way, after this statement of him saying that they're going after Ukraine, Ukraine ended up lobbying, like right after this message, sending a ton of drones into Russia. So again, this is once again Donald Trump really trying to do Russian talking points and just really love Putin.
I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now.
Russia does not have all the cards. They do not. That's why they're desperately trying to end this thing in Ukraine. Russia does not want this thing to continue because they don't have the manpower to do so. Quite frankly, neither does Ukraine, but especially Russia. Russia does not have all the cards right now. That's why they're begging for a ceasefire.
And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. You can't do that.
Mr. President.
We're trying to help them. And Ukraine has to get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there. Good, I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economy.
So keep in mind, though, the problem about this is that Donald Trump and Zelensky got into it, right? Because J.D. Vance and Donald Trump wanted to make a mockery of Zelensky, and now they were begging Zelensky to apologize before they ever come to the table. Why? Because Trump wants that praise and admiration. He wants it. He wants it so bad. Trump does not like Zelensky because he's not Putin. It's simple as that.
Together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself and Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get a ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance. But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop. They're losing on average 2,000.
It's not going to stop when Donald Trump, and mind you guys, by the way, remember when Donald Trump said that he was going to end the war in Ukraine on day one? What day is it now? A month? Where is MAGA holding Donald Trump to that same standard that would if Kamala Harris made a promise to fulfill something on day one, or a Democrat were to say that she was going to fulfill a promise on day one, Republicans and MAGA would not let it go. They would not stop. They would be consistently pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. But because it's Donald Trump, they let him get away with some of these promises that he's broken. It's ridiculous.
1,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers. Do you agree, Peter?
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides, I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably...
Did you miss the press conference with Zelensky? I did not cover it, but I did watch it. So take that for what it's worth. I didn't cover it. I've been busy with the new job and everything else for the past week and a half. So it's been pretty crazy. So I'm back on schedule now. I got my rhythm down. It just took me a little bit.
Probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has
They both
said,
are.
this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had
I think he said leftist war.
conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump...
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals.
Many of whom are criminals is factually incorrect. Many of the people, statistically speaking, if you were to use the most over generous amount from given the FBI statistics of about 400 to 500,000 undocumented immigrants who are criminals, by the way. Yeah, you said 21 million people. If that's the case, 400,000 is a drop in the bucket, which means many of whom is completely inaccurate. So statistically speaking, it's more likely to have a undocumented immigrant be a non-criminal than be a criminal. They tend to be, in terms of, criminality, okay, a net positive in our country. They're not a net negative in terms of civility. In terms of economics, there's a whole line of argument there to be had, right? MAGA will sit there and say, well, guess what? If you look at the total amount that's taken from the taxpayers, problem is when you look at that, they include federal and state in terms of those numbers, right? State aid. But the problem is that I and my state is not paying for someone next door to me in that state, right? So the problem is that these numbers are fudged a little bit to try to give the appearance that immigrants are a net negative on society, when that's just not entirely the case. Again, and you can make them fiscal. One way you could increase this and make them a net positive and increase that revenue is to make them a citizen, give them a taxpayer. Most do pay in the tax system. They're a taxpayer identification system or an I-10, but give them that pathway to citizenship. Make them a citizen. Make them pay into it then. Right now they're getting paid on the table. That person could be putting money into the economy. Give them a citizenship. More likely they're going to be okay. Give them that.
Including murderers, thousands of murderers. Many killed, far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But
and this is the thing that bothers me, and I'll kind of tie this in since I may not be able to get to the speech made to Congress. This is something that bothers me, is that MAGA tends to do this. They tend to use tragedy for political gain. Okay, they tend to sit there and with there was like Jocelyn Nungary and oh goodness gracious. The other girl that ended up having that tragedy happen to her, Laken Riley. Laken Riley, they can't name anybody, like anything more than 5 of those people. And that should speak volumes. If you really do care about that cause, you should be able to name at least 5 of them. And if you can't do that, you might want to go back to the drawing board and realize that you might be using these people's tragedies for political gain. And it's the same thing that I have when it comes to, and I'll address this now, the child who ended up having cancer and received the Secret Service Award and things like that. Let's address 2 parts to this, because there's the Democrat response and then there's my feelings towards that. I think it's awesome of what happened for that child. But with saying that, I do believe that it was used for political gain. And that I do have a problem with. Don't use this child's tragedy for your political gain. It is awesome. I love to see what happened with this child and being given joy. But don't take advantage of that child either. And in the same regard, now, to the Democrats' response. The thing about the Democrats' response, let's be very clear here what's going on. The Democrats' response was handled poorly as well. Okay? What I believe should have happened is when Al Green got up and made a scene, I think it would have been much more impactful if Democrats just ended up leaving all at the same time or causing a ruckus, right? Everybody, you had Al Green shouting. It would have been really interesting to see Democrats shouting. How many sergeant at arms do you really have, right? So either leave or don't. And then them not clapping, it's like it made it more awkward that they sat there and didn't clap. It made it more awkward that they just held up signs. So because of that, I would have much rather have preferred them walk out at the beginning of the speech or, protest, whatever. Or if you're going to stay there, clap. Optically, it looks pretty bad. Okay, but to be clear, I understand the left sentiment that's, look, you're using this child's tragedy for political gain, for political optics. I'm not okay with that. It's the same thing that happened with Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, all these other people that they claim and they try to use as a way to try to get at undocumented immigrants. Stop using people's tragedy for political gain. It's not okay. It's not okay. Period. I don't care if you're left, right, center, or median, whatever. Do not use people's tragedy for political gain. This happens all the time, by the way, in some cases when it comes to high schools, when those things happen in, school pew-pews, okay? In those incidents. Now, I'm using TikTok language, so forgive me if you're listening, Lethe. Stop using them as tragedies. Stop using those for your political gain, okay? And yes, I'm going to say undocumented entering the country is illegal. I don't care. So is jaywalking. I don't care that you want to sit there and try to label somebody as illegal as a somehow inherent violent criminal. That's not who these people are. So stop trying to sit there and assume that these people are violent criminals By all statistical measures, it's very unlikely that the person you interact with that's an undocumented immigrant, that's what I'm calling them, because I believe in humanity. I believe in being considerate of my neighbors, because I'm, as a true Christian, believe in the whole idea of love thy neighbor. Yeah, I believe in that. I know that all of a sudden we have now had MAGA discover Christianity as if it's now something that they now do outside of a Sunday meal. But make no mistake, a lot of these people who are claiming to be Christians now on the MAGA side don't actually practice Christianity after they leave church on a Sunday morning. Okay, so I'm tired of seeing these particular arguments. Now, keep in mind, I've already told you guys many times, and I'll say it again, I grew up conservative my entire life. I grew up Christian my entire life. And what I have seen coming from the MAGA party now is absolutely disgusting and deplorable. That is not the Republican Party I grew up to. Now, granted, I'm not saying the Republican Party was any bit better when I was growing up, but it was a hell of a lot better than it is now. The Republican Party now is taken over by a bunch of people who don't understand how to tie their own shoes.
Tom Holman and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here. And we'll get them out. We'll get them all out. But all these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing a good job. We're doing a good
Mr.
job.
President, in regards to the
Blizza, I grew up as just means I no longer am. No, it means I still am. But it means that I know and have grown up to and understood what those principles stand for. It's ingrained into my entire life. It is essentially who I am. It is foundational to my roots. That's what I mean when I say I grew up as. And yes, I grew up as a conservative and I now vote Democrat. It doesn't mean that I don't have some of those same ideologies. Make no mistake that the Overton window is very real and it does shift. It does change. And that is what has exactly happened to me. I was in the center right, or no, I would say center right, and the right decided to move further right. Well, I'm not going to take any part of that. I don't want to be a Republican if this is what I have to deal with. So guess what? I absolutely moved to the left. Doesn't mean I'm no longer holding some similar conservative values, but I've absolutely moved away from that particular policy position. So are you currently Christian? I would say I am, and I have no problem saying such. I've been very open about my religion and my faith. No, I got you, Blizzard. No, I still to this day am very much a Christian, but I don't really hold those same. I don't tell people that very often because I don't want people to assume that I form my policy positions around my faith. I kind of had them in two separate buckets. I look at my policy positions based on facts, based on reality, based on things like that. Unlike MAGA, MAGA is unable to really look at these things in a very separate bucket. They blend those ideologies. Their principles are based on Christianity. And again, it's each their own on that. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're not allowed to do that. That's perfectly up to you. But the problem I have is when there are people out there now all of a sudden saying Christ is king, Christ is king, Christ is king. And they weren't doing it before Trump. That's my problem I have. You weren't doing all this before Trump. You weren't doing all this. But now you are.
pause on military assistance to Ukraine. You put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of
Well, because
Patriot
yeah,
batteries?
good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death. More important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So
Patriot says, because we finally have free speech. We have had free speech. And to be very clear, Donald Trump is going after free speech. So spare me with that. When you sit there and say Donald Trump wants to get rid of NBC and CBS's license, when you have Donald Trump wanting to get rid of the AP, when you have Donald Trump going after reporters like Rachel Maddow, and getting upset whenever somebody speaks up against him, spare me with free speech. By the way, guys, Donald Trump wants to get rid of, now listen, controversial, understand, totally get it. I wouldn't do it. But flag burning is a constitutionally given right. It is a First Amendment given right. He wants to get rid of that and, in fact, jail people for that. That's patently against the First Amendment.
We're in for $350 billion, and Europe
Thank
is in
you,
for
Bliz. I
$100
appreciate
billion.
it.
They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled. This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
So Iran, how confident are you that the Iranians will negotiate with you? And is Israel on board with this outrage?
Yeah, I saw the hostages the other day. They came in, people that were not young, some young and some older, much older. And they gave, it was hard for them to do it actually. They gave statements as to what happened. I was asking, what happened? How was it? I said, did you see anybody in there that was kind to, like, out of the hundreds?
BB, whatever your name is, flag burning is not a First Amendment right. It is a First Amendment right. This was discussed, I believe, in the 60s or 70s. It went to the Supreme Court. It was determined it is a constitutional right, First Amendment right. So Donald Trump wanting to get rid of it is patently against the First Amendment. There's no arguing that. If you want to get rid of it, you are against that First Amendment protected speech.
The people that you were seeing, Hamas, did some of them wink at you and say, don't worry, you're going to be okay, or give you a piece of bread, or no? I said, were there any people that were, like, kind? I was shocked. The answer was nobody. There was nobody. Just the opposite. They'd be slapped and punched. One man broke his ribs. He couldn't breathe for a month. It was brutal. I was so surprised. Could you think there'd be a couple of people that would be kind, that would say, you're going to be okay? But they had none of that. It's pretty amazing. Brad? He's a kind person. Although not to Zelensky, he wasn't. But to Trump, he's been good. Go ahead, Brad. Thank you. Thank you. I like yours.
Yeah, and I think this is the same guy, I believe, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend that ended up saying Zelensky was not wearing a suit and he was upset about it, but yet he wasn't upset about Elon Musk's lack of wearing a suit.
Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Sometimes questions aren't answerable. They're in a very unusual position. They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started, you could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian.
Yeah, the reporter made the comment of the suit.
Somebody's-
I think that's the one he was referring to, and he's like proud MAGA. Like it's ridiculous, like how much he's like, yeah, I'm Trump's #1 favorite reporter and everything, and it's just like it's insane.
Well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir about it. I used to spep to him about it at length. It was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going in, and he knew it. You know, there were going to be consequences, but it did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation. You have the war with Ukraine and Russia. That would.
Okay, Michael, you know nothing about Ukraine. Nothing. No one cares about the suits. He doesn't want peace. He doesn't want martial law lifted to be voted out. He did not vote for martial law. You guys don't even understand what you're reading. You don't understand it at all. And it's hilarious to me because you're sitting there saying, oh, he doesn't want to be. He has no say in martial law. It is decided by the parliament. The parliament is the one who decides it. They're the ones who decide. And by the way, constitutionally, in their constitution, they cannot vote while they're under martial law. So yes, they're not doing that. And he's already stated, by the way, that he would happily give up his seat if it means ending this war.
Happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran had no money. Iran was stone cold broke. And now they have a lot of money. And that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And
Fleeing Dollar is saying Trump won. Yay. Yeah, Trump won by 1.5%. Less than 50% of the vote. Mandate.
there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. You know, we're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, I saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion. All in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right?
So, by the way, you said, Travis Doe, you said, what about literally dragging people off the street to fight in his war? First of all, I've seen some of the videos. Second, there's no context added to these videos. Third of all, there is a draft currently, I believe, in Ukraine, and there are consequences for not attending the draft. That's just how it is. Even here in the United States, we had a draft, and if people were dodging the draft, They got arrested. Nothing new. We have no way to tell one way or the other whether these people are being in fact arrested, whether they're being, sent off to fight. We just see somebody being hauled into a van with no context at all, other than like a rough translation that we don't even, quite frankly, know what is even being said or we can trust.
So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world, but we have a...
Turvey, you're correct too. What about Putin? This is the funny thing. They'll do this about Zelensky. Oh, Zelensky's piling people up into their car. Russia's doing far worse. Russia's actually like conscripting men that they conquer their land, and they're like, hey, we want you to come over here and you're going to fight for us. They're doing much worse things.
Situation with Iran, that something's going to happen very soon. Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
Well, and Paul, that's the other important thing too, is that there's like a couple of instances that I've seen, I think 2 maybe, I don't think I've seen anything more than 2, of people getting hauled into a van. And I don't even know whether or not it's legit. I don't know where the source is. I don't know when this source, I don't know any of the details. Because there's not enough details. It's literally just a video of somebody being hauled into a van. For all I know, it could be Russians that dress up as Ukrainians. I don't know.
I say your allies are calling on you to pardon Derek Chauvin. Are you considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No.
Mr. President, on peace.
I haven't heard that.
In the first term, you may recall, I broke the news that you...
They wanted to, he was asking about pardoning Derek Chauvin, George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, and stuff like that.
...were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason for that was the work that you led on the...
Patriot, you asked a very interesting question. So why don't you base your life of Christianity if you're Christian? Because I am, and I don't understand why you wouldn't. This is really interesting. So I'm glad you asked this. So I like to say that my political beliefs are separate from my personal beliefs. What I look at politically is what is statistically true, what is better for the total of society, and then I have my personal beliefs. When I'm talking with my friends and things of that nature, I will talk to them about my beliefs if it's an appropriate setting or whatnot, but I don't push those beliefs onto another person. I do believe in our society we are going to have multiple people that are from different backgrounds, different religions, and things of that nature. And so for me, it's not, in my opinion, the best society, and this is where, again, this is all your moral compass, for me to sit there and impose my religion onto somebody else. I can try to provide certain policy prescriptions and things of that nature, but I understand, and I don't let Christianity be my compass for my politics. I separate these two. I look at my politics as based on facts, based on, the betterment of society as a whole. And then in my personal life with my personal bubble of friends and family and everything else, that is when I go through that. So I hope that helps you answer it. I just kind of view them in 2 different buckets, right? There's probably an element in my head where I do impose Christianity in my political beliefs, but it's very far and few between. Most of it is like, for example, the economy. There's no Christian belief for me in the economy, right? I'm looking at statistical facts from the economy, like tariffs and things like that. When it comes to deportations, I do look at it and say, look, most of these people, statistics, not my feelings, not my feels, not my religion. I look at the fact that most undocumented immigrants are good citizens. Most are. So I agree to look at the facts, but I'm talking primarily about the moral. So AB is a very interesting one, Patriot, because I understand that that's kind of the one topic that really gets brought up, right? And which is why I think that's probably why I have kind of the Roe framework. I say leave the Roe framework the way that it was, because even with that, I kind of look at going, this is where that particular belief comes in, where I say separate these two, right? Where I sit there and say, look, this is not my place to tell somebody else who doesn't believe in what I believe to do that. And in fact, I would argue, and this is just my belief, and I don't want to get into this whole conversation because this gets all twisted. I don't think that sitting there saying you cannot do this makes them come to my side. I don't believe in the sledgehammer approach. I believe in the crowbar approach, which means that, look, you plant the seed. You go, hey, I got an awesome band at my church. You're more welcome to come by if you want to go. That's it. Not sitting there on the street corner, seeing somebody walk by, hit him in the head with the Bible and going, Jesus said, Jesus said, Jesus said. That's not going to help anybody. Nobody's going to sit there and listen to you. They're going to run away from you. So that's why I don't believe in saying go to the extremes when it comes to that particular topic. And this is where I think if you want to impose your religion on that policy, you would be opposed to wanting to go to the extremes. By the way. All right. That's enough of the the Pastor Wilson show. Let's go ahead and go in here.
Abraham quotes. I spoke yesterday with the member of parliament, the Norwegian parliament, that nominated you. And he said what the Nobel Committee is looking for from you, Mr. President, is security guarantees for Ukraine. Is that a possibility, Mr. President?
So before I...
Patriot, with all respect, I actually appreciate you being mildly respectful here. I want to mention this. If you cared about the children then, you should care about the children now. You should care about the children who are here in the United States illegally, okay, who are now going to be separated from their parents. Where's your morality once they're here in the world, here in the United States? Your morality leaves the door. You go and say, well, that's not my problem because that's the parent's problem. The parent was the one who brought them here. Your morality goes completely out the window when it involves children that are actually here in this world, in this particular country.
even think about that, I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that. The prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them. We're losing 2,000 human beings every week. More than that, actually. 2,000 nice, young, although they're getting older because they're drafting much older now. In the case of one country, much older, because a lot of the young people have been killed. It's very sad, and I'd like to see if I could stop that. And I'd like to also see if we could stop making these massive payments from the United States. I mean, Biden gave away money like it was... like.
I think that's about it on that end. Let's go to the next. I think I have a couple more I can... let's see. Got a few more. I'll play this one. I won't play this one. So anyways, we'll continue to chat. I'll chat with you guys for a little bit more. And then I gotta get going. First of all, they should completely be looked at because they're children, and then a little who have been clearly documented for breaking laws should not be here. My problem when it comes to, listen, I'll get into the undocumented immigrant argument for a little bit. I got about 5 more minutes. So as far as undocumented immigrants go, the people who are here, here's my view, so you guys do not prescribe to me what is not my belief. I believe that when you are here in the United States, and if you have contributed to society, you have put in money, right? You've put money into, the tax base, and you've done all that. Then it is my belief, and you've not committed a crime, if you've done none of that, then you should be afforded the right to be a citizen. You should be afforded a pathway to citizenship. I think that comes with background checks, sure. Maybe that comes with making sure you are actually going to be doing that. But I don't believe the policy right now is we should just deport everybody. The person who's next door, who has paid into taxes, the person who has sat there and contributed to their economy by working. I don't believe they should be gone because of that. And I think trying to get rid of these people before you've actually solved the problem is putting the cart before the horse. Even if you were involved, even if you were for getting rid of these people, right? If you're here to do that, then you would want to fix the problem first by sealing the border and then deporting them. But the problem is that there's not enough funding to do that. You can put military at the border, but the military, until there's been an active war, which maybe that's the long game here, I don't know, because they've already labeled cartels as T groups. Okay, maybe that's something that he's working on, is trying to go to war with Mexico or something. I don't know. But the military cannot arrest any of these individuals. It's up to these individual states to be able to do so. So it's just a wholly ineffective strategy. No, Patriot, I listen, I have no problem engaging with people in good faith. I get a little animated, but I appreciate you coming at me from a very level-headed standpoint, and not a lot of people in here, as you can tell, would do so. But being animated is just kind of part of the deal, right? It's the art of the deal, if you will. They definitely should label. Well, again, the problem is, though, is how far does that expand, right? Are we talking about actually going to war with Mexico? Because that doesn't really work real well. Are we talking about putting boots on the ground in Mexico? So again, I'm not a big fan of it. You don't believe that cheap immigrant labor undercuts the wages of American citizens? So Nate, the problem with that is that, again, I don't like that they're being paid. Trust me, as from my personal experience, I don't like that they're being paid less than minimum wage. So what I would like to see is they become citizens so that they are beholden to our minimum wage laws. That way they get actually paid a fair wage. But keep in mind, the problem is that most Americans, even if they were to become U.S. citizens, let's be very clear, our agricultural laws allow for people to be paid less than minimum wage. So again, even if they were to become citizens, it doesn't really solve that problem. So if you're advocating for minimum wage laws for them to, increase the wage, hey, I'm right there with you. Most leftists would be right there with you. Trust me, we don't want them to be paid less than minimum wage. You want a slave class? No, I don't. I would rather see them actually being paid a livable wage through being paid through a pathway to citizenship. That's what I would like to see. Miguel posted a huge capitalized. I'll read it. Based on what you're saying, conflicts, then why do this people take the time to come the legal way? Same thing, but many want to make the money fast. That is why they do not take the time to come legally. So what you're referring to, I believe, is that they're trying to come here, make a quick buck, and then leave. I don't believe that's statistically true. I think if you look at a lot of people, they actually come here, live with their relatives, and then they earn a wage here. And in some cases, they even pay an I-10 because they believe that paying into the tax base, they believe that that's going to be a way for them to get to a pathway to citizenship. So that's one of the reasons why they actually do pay taxes through an I-10. An I-10 can be obtained. And keep in mind, people are like, what? An undocumented immigrant can't pay taxes? Look at Al Capone. For anyone unaware, Al Capone got hammed up by the Fed for not paying taxes on stolen goods. So, the main problem with illegal immigrants is that you can easily lie. Well, what do you mean by that, Patriot? What do you mean easily lie? I'm trying to understand what you mean by that, because the problem is that Donald Trump has tried in his first administration to revoke citizenship status through denaturalization for simple typographical errors. So you put a comma in the wrong place, or you misspelled instead of VINCE, you did VENCE. Okay, they try to denaturalize people because of that. Pro minimum wage MAGA, sweet, right? I know. MAGA now all of a sudden cares about minimum wage. Isn't that interesting? When all I had heard, and the funny thing is their arguments aren't very cohesive, because one of the things that MAGA will do is they'll sit there and say that they'll be like, oh, well, if I increase minimum wage, it's going to increase prices. Okay, well then and they'll say, well, because it's an extra cost on the business. Well, okay, what about tariffs? Oh, no. Tariffs won't lead to increased prices. No. Won't do that. It's amazing to me. Why do they get to skip the line on? Oh, my chat is like, I'm way behind here, guys. Whew. Yo, I think you've been watching CNN a little much. Branch out. I go way out there. I don't even watch CNN. Quite frankly, I can't tell you the last time I watched a full CNN segment or MSNBC segment or Fox News segment. Where I go is I hear an argument and I research it. I go to a primary source. I then try to see, what is this counter argument? What is the pro argument? I try to assess both sides, and I do find that there are some cases where the left has been like a little wrong on some things, and that's okay. Call it out when you see it. How many you let live with you? If I got space, if I got a neighbor that knocks on my door, I'll let him in. Hey, want some food? Cool. Because statistically, they're unlikely to actually harm me and my family. So. And again, I'd ask the same thing of you, what's stopping you? That they're going to harm? And again, the problem is I've had this analogy be brought to me many times where they're like, somebody will knock down your door. Like, no. If they knock down my door, they are imposing a threat by knocking down my door. But if they knock on my door and say, hey, man, look, this is the neighborhood. I'm a new neighbor. And they don't seem sketchy. I mean, clearly, obviously, you have to use some common sense, right? They don't seem sketchy. Yeah, come on in. Let's eat. I'm cool with that. Right? Isn't that, and keep in mind, the idea of Christianity, by the way, isn't that what Jesus would do? Right? Remember the stranger on that road that Jesus saw? The poor person? Can I pray for you? I was joking. I would help them, bet. Yeah, I mean, I would help them. That's the thing you got to do is you need to help them. Okay, that's the Christian thing to do. Keep in mind, by the way, this is the funny thing about this. If any of you guys have watched The Chosen, or if you've watched any of these other things, y'all would know as good Christians that Jesus came with the outliers, right? He didn't stick with the Sadducees and the Pharisees and all the wealthy people of the society. He hung out with the people that were the outcasts, right? He hung out with the prostitute. He hung out with the thief. He hung out with all of these outcasts. And MAGA right now is behaving like the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They're behaving like those groups. Some of y'all may get that. Some of y'all may not. Watch The Chosen. Great show, by the way. Render unto Caesar which belongs to him, and yet they dodge taxes consistently. What's up, Adam? Because the outcasts need to be led to the correct path. Using Jesus to push politics. John, you're so triggered. I've seen nothing but you triggered in the chat. It's hysterical. They're behaving like, yeah, I agree with you, Luke. It's wild to me because they don't see the flaws in their own arguments. But look, guys, I've got to get going. I've been going for now almost 2 hours, and I got through one video. I was intending to go through 2 or 3 videos, but you guys have been awesome despite some of our heavy disagreements. And a few of you guys have been very cordial, and I appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. We stream Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, albeit just depends on the schedule. So pay attention, join the Discord, things like that. You can see a bunch of links in the description. Other than that, guys, I appreciate every single one of you guys. I hope y'all have a great weekend. And see y'all on Monday. That'll be